Hey guys, welcome back to another innovation review. Today we're going to be checking out the Tahoe GT from ELUX, which is right behind me over there. So let's dive into it. Alright guys, we are out here with the Tahoe GT. This is the step-through version. They also have a step-over version as well, which we'll showcase a little bit later in the review. If you're looking for the step over and you want to see what that looks like, we'll do some measurements and stuff, and we'll have timestamps down below there. So this is the Tahoe GT. We've already done our comparison video between the GT and the regular Tahoe, so you guys probably know a little bit about this if you watched that video. If not, there'll be a link to that down in the description if you want to compare those two. So we're not going to reference too much of that, again, because we already did that video. So today we're just going to talk about the specs on the GT and see what those are like. Now, the two most important things, which we talk about pretty much on any e-bike, is going to be the motor and the battery. Now, I have worked with ELUX for quite a few reviews in a row, so there is some stuff that's, behind the scenes. It's not necessarily talking about the bike that we can cover. Like, for example, they offer a ton of color options, which is a little bit different in this space. There's some people who have 2-3 color options for some of their products, and they've got 8+ on pretty much all of them. So if you're somebody who likes to, color match, you got the yellow car, you want the yellow bike, you got the blue car, want the blue bike, definitely worth checking out their website and seeing what color options there are available in their different product lineups there. The other thing to mention about ELUX, since we're talking about the Tahoe, is they were actually the original fat tire beach cruiser e-bike. So there wasn't anybody who did it before them. They've been in business for quite a while. There are other people, there's more people in the space now, but these guys were the originals, so they've had a lot of time to, iterate their products, make it better, and they really just have quite a few different features as they've built out this lineup over the years that make it stand out, especially at the price point that some of these bikes are at. Now, the GT right now, as I'm recording this video, is $26.95. The regular Tahoe is $16.95. And again, if you want to look at the comparison, see if this particular one is worth it compared to the other one, we do a full breakdown in that video that I mentioned earlier. So just a couple fun things about the company. Now let's jump into the specs on the GT. So in the rear, we've got this 750 watt Tahoe motor, peaks at about 1400 watts. Definitely feels like it's got some get up and go. And especially with these, and we'll talk about these tires a little bit later, these 3.5 inch tires instead of it being 4 inch tires, these roll really, really well. They are designed for the concrete, the paved paths. When we do our ride test, we'll go over there on our bike trail here, and I'll show you how those do. They brake really well. I mean, some of that's, from the brakes, but you have a lot of power here, so you kind of need some of those extra features to back it up. And I think they do that with the tires and the derailleur. Just the whole thing, I think, really backs up the 750 watt motor. It's not incredibly loud, does have some get up and go. And as we mentioned with our regular Tahoe review, which may or may not be published before this one, they do have modes that you can go in there and basically make it feel like 3 different bikes. So they have a eco, normal, and power mode, and when we get into the ride test, I'll demonstrate both of those. It really changes the entire ride feel of the bike from a performance perspective. So I like things that go fast. That's sort of my vibe. So I really test them out to see what the potential is as far as the power goes. But you'll see in the ride test when we dial those settings in that it really turns into a very easy, very manageable cruiser bike. So very cool that we have that flexibility here. Again, most bikes, they don't have that option. A couple of them are starting to come out that Velotrek's got something very similar, and there are some other people that have modes built into their levels of pedal assist. But these guys, again, been doing it for a while, and I think they're really, really dialed in. And really, it's kind of like you're buying 3 bikes in one, which is pretty cool. So if you get this bike, your wife, your husband gets a different bike, you guys can have totally different bikes, totally different riding experiences, but still get the same quality product. So very interesting. Like the motor here. The next thing to talk about is the battery. So over here, we've got our lockable, removable 21 amp hour battery. Now online it's listed as 20, so I don't know if this 21 is an upgrade or is a typo, or they just gave me an extra watt hour to be nice. But the one that I have on this bike is a 21 amp hour battery, a 48 volt system. Now this is a Silverfish style battery. These things are, pretty common in the e-bike space. We're seeing a lot of people that go a little bit more for like the integrated look, but I think having it back here, it's nice for a center of gravity. That's kind of where your weight is going to be right here. It is back behind the seat post. So really the only thing that is maybe a negative about this style of battery is you got to take the seat post out before you can remove the battery. Now it is pretty simple, just kind of that extra step there that you got to do. But for most people on this bike, they'll probably just be charging in their garage or charging wherever they're at. So you've got our charging port on this side. You just pop this out, boom, charge it up. And again, it kind of snaps down, which I really like about these batteries. Some people, or some batteries on bikes I've tested that are this style, this is always kind of like a wild card. Like, how does it work? And this one, it really does just like snaps into place. It's got a little bit of like a spring action almost. So it's a very high quality port. As long as this is in here, like it's not gonna open, which is very nice. We do have a quick guide over here, so we can see just kind of at a glance how much juice we have in there. Kind of hard to tell at this angle with the light gleaming off of here, but we've got a full charge here. It's just something you can see a little bit better in person, so that's kind of nice. You do need the battery to operate it, so we put the bike in the off position, and then in the on position the key stays in there. So definitely recommend swapping or separating these keys so they're out. Now right now they are zip tied to the bike because I got a lot of ELUX bikes in the garage now. I don't want to mess up keys, so normally it's not zip tied here, but that's just something I'm doing so I don't get confused. So that is the battery. Definitely at 21 amp hours is quite a bit of juice. The range on this thing is anywhere between, I think they say 55 to 65, and then another 25% if you're going 15 miles an hour on flat terrain in eco mode. And again, 21 amp hours makes a lot of sense. The motor is pretty efficient. It's pretty sensitive, so when you start to pedal, you get it. When you stop pedaling, it doesn't put it out as much. So there is some things that make it nice, right? So, and when I say make it nice, it means efficient. That's a better word. So you are gonna, those sort of ranges I think are pretty reasonable. So we talked about the motor, how much power you have the potential of. Again, we can switch that up in the display. You got some pretty decent range here now. If we are barreling down the road, what are we about stopping? So the next thing we'll talk about is the brakes. So these are 4-piston Tektro Dorado brakes, and these are some of the nicer brakes that come on e-bikes. They do have motor cutoff cables here and a really nice hand feel, and they stop the bike really well. Now those are connected down here to our Tektro Dorado calipers here. Again, 4-piston, lots of stopping power, and then in the front we've got a 203mm rotor. Plenty of braking surface there. Most bikes come with 180mm rotors, so 203mm rotors is bigger, larger braking area. It's going to be able to allow you to come to a stop a little bit quicker. And then in the rear, again, Tektro Dorado calipers here and a 180mm disc. Now again, usually most bikes will come with two 180mm, most bikes will come with two 180mm discs, but they've got the 203 up front. So we do get some extra braking power, which is nice. And we'll do some braking tests when we get into the ride test. But so far from my riding, they brake really well, and I'm pretty happy with these. Again, Tektro Dorado is quite an upgrade from the regular Tektros we see. Now even on their regular model, they've got the Tektro Ariga brakes, which are also really nice. Those are 2 pistons, but they are a step above sort of the typical brake that we see come on e-bikes these days. So we talked about the braking. You're going to want to brake. Now we got all this power back here. How are we going to manage that? Well, that is going to be our Shimano Altus derailleur here in the back. And then we've got our little bit of a chain guard up here in the front. And so far as gearing goes, seems to do pretty well. So we don't get any ghost pedaling at higher speeds. Again, the GT goes a little bit faster, up to 28 miles per hour, and we're not getting any ghost pedaling, which is something I think a lot of brands sort of miss in the design process there. Up here, we've got our 8-speed rapid fire trigger shifters here. These are nice, they work well. Now these bikes, they come pretty much fully assembled. I mean, the only thing you really have to do is put the pedals on you put that little strap on in the back and install the stem, because the handlebars are already installed. Usually I think I had to tighten those up a little bit, but right out of the box, the brakes were great, didn't have to adjust those. The shifting was great, didn't have to adjust that. So if you're somebody who's like, well, I kind of live out in the middle of nowhere, I really think that I want somebody to put this together, and most of the time it's a good idea to go that route. But I think with ELUX and some of these other companies that ship these like 98% assembled bikes, it is very simple to do. You know, a couple quick videos of how to install the stem, and then boom, you're off to the races. So this is a company where wouldn't necessarily recommend you have to go to a local bike shop. I mean, you know, by all means, if that's what you want to do, awesome. But I really think they make it super simple for people to put these together. So all in all, it comes, yeah, I mean, it really is like 98% assembled. I mean, I'm putting on the front stem and the pedals and that little strap in the back, and then you're good to go. I don't even have to air up the tires. The tires were good. Yeah, it's just, from me as a reviewer, it's definitely a delight to get a bike like that where it's like I don't have to put a bunch of work up front into assembling it and filling tires and adjusting the brakes and adjusting the drivetrain. Everything just kind of came, you know, in one nice little package. So the next thing to talk about is going to be the display. So go ahead and turn it on. Make sure we can see it here. So it's going to show us we got our BMS quadrant up here. So we got 52.3 voltage, so this thing is definitely fully charged. This is those modes I was talking about. And so to switch those, you just hold the set button here. It's going to pop up, and so set 0 right here, because there's more things that you can do here. It's going to be power, normal, eco, and you can just go down into normal, down into eco, and so you can switch up. And like I said, and I'll show you guys here in a little bit, it really is like a completely different bike. It's going to show us our speed, which right now we're not going anywhere, so that's fine. Pedal assist level on the bottom, and this is going to be our info thing, so we can see our trip distance, time, odometer, trip 1, trip 2, that sort of stuff. So you can have 2 different trips in there, which is, if you're somebody that likes keeping track of that stuff, it is nice that they included that here in the system. So very easy to use. It does have a walk mode if you ever want to use a walk mode. So you press and hold this down button here, or our minus button. That's going to put it in walk mode. It's going to be pedal assist level 1. Yeah, pedal assist level 1. And then our walk mode is going to give us, it says 6 miles an hour. It's probably closer to 4 or 5 when you're actually just riding, and then you let go and it stops, which is nice. So if you ever got to push it up something, or, I mean, I really don't know when you use walk mode. You know, I've been doing this for 5 years, never been in a situation where I needed to use walk mode. But if you find that situation that I haven't found yet, you do have the ability to do walk mode here. And so that is pretty much it for the display. The other things that sort of tie into that will be our brakes. So we do have brake integration here. So as we brake, our brake light comes on. You see that? Yeah, brake light comes on. So that's nice. It's nice that we have that option here. I'm just make sure it's back in power mode. Yep. So some safety features, something that would be nice to see, especially maybe on this black one. If you are riding at night, some sidewall reflective stripes I think would be a nice way to go. We do have the reflectors built into the spokes, or I guess attached to the spokes here, but having some sidewall reflective stripes on these tires would be pretty sweet. Now as far as the tires go, again, I mentioned that this is something that is nice for the concrete or flat surfaces. Lots of flat grippage here, and we do get some bigger V's on the side for cornering. Now when I first saw these, I thought they were 4-inch tires, but they're 3.5-inch tires. Because I've seen some 4-inch tires that looked about this size, but these are 3.5. Now it definitely has more of a traditional fat tire feel as opposed to like a traditional smaller bike size tire. And if you've ridden both those, you know that, like, you know, a bike feels a certain way with, you know, 2.5-inch tires. Then when you go to 4 inches, it's a little bit more of a lean, a little bit more stable. It's just a little bit more of a different ride feel than the smaller tires. And I feel like this is definitely more of a fat tire with a little bit more nimbleness, because we are, you know, losing 1/2 inch on the width there. So those ones are pretty sweet. Now the next thing to talk about is the suspension, and we're already down here, so that makes sense. We've got an RST guide fork here in the front. We've got our lockout preload adjustment over here, so that way we can sort of dial this in. I haven't touched this, haven't really messed around with it, because as it came out of the box, it was just very comfortable for the riding that I'm doing, which is mainly the bike trails and stuff over here. So no complaints about that. And then for suspension, we also have this NCX Suntour suspension here in the back, which if you guys haven't tried one of these particular ones, these ones are great. You know, there's other brands, Cane Creek, Redshift, but these ones I think for the money are probably the nicest ones. And that's just my opinion. We got a lot of bikes that have these on there, like the Ufrees have those. The Mach Wheel accessory pack that you get that comes with a CPO suspension is basically an unbranded NCX. Like there's no difference between the two of them. So I've definitely tested a lot of these. I have one of these on my personal bikes, one of the Mach Wheel unbranded ones. But the Suntour NCX they're just nice. They're great. And then on top of it, we've got this Surface hybrid suspension system. This is a nice big gel saddle, and it is pretty wide. I mean, it's about 10 inches wide or so. So definitely a nice big, nice gel saddle. A little bit of a relief here coming down the middle, the seat crack, if you will. So all in all, it is a very comfortable bike to ride. We've got these double locking grips with a little bit of the ergonomic here, and I really like these, especially on these cruiser bars where the cruiser bars kind of come back a little bit. Having this support here just makes this grip a lot more natural than it would be if it was a straight bar. So you get a little bit, you can put a little bit more of a curve on it, so your wrist is a little bit straighter. So these ones I think are a really nice choice for the comfort factor. And then again, talking about the bars, they do have quite a back sweep. So this is a very, very like beach cruiser vibe. I think they really nailed it here with some of the dimensions. Nice easy reach here. And all in all, it's just a very comfortable bike to ride, especially because we've got suspension in the front, which is kind of alleviating a lot of that wrist strain, and then the suspension in the rear, which is alleviating all the other strains there. So comfort-wise, this one it's definitely more comfortable than the regular Tahoe. The regular Tahoe doesn't have suspension in the front, and it doesn't have, well, it has a CPO suspension, but it's one of those vertical CPO suspensions, just not as high quality, not as good of a feel as the Suntour back here. Now, as far as accessories go, we do have pretty much everything you'd want. We got the front light, we got the rear light, we've got a full set of fenders in the front and rear. Comes with a rack. We got one of these little bungees here. Now on the rack it says max 25 kilograms as far as the weight goes. You guys can do that math conversion if you're in the US. And you know, honestly, it's a pretty standard rack. So I think kind of holding that weight makes a lot of sense. Definitely is a nice platform to put a trunk bag on or pannier bags. Lots of options there. And guys, I think that is pretty much all the important specs. Now there are more things to talk about, and we'll get into some of the measurements later on in the video when we compare the Step-Through with the Step-Over. All right, folks, we have come to the part of the review where we can talk about the differences between the Step-Over, which is our red Tahoe GT, and our Step-Through Tahoe GT, which is our black one on this side. Now, if we go through the specs, you'd pretty much be redundant. Same motor, same brakes, same battery, same CPO suspension, kaboom. If you looked at the specs of any of these bikes, they're going to be the same across the board. The real big difference between the two bikes is the fact that this one has a much taller standover height, because we've got our top bar here, and then this one's got a much lower step-through height because of our step-through here. So let's go ahead and bring out the handy-dandy tape measure, and let's see what the differences are. So down over here on the Step-Through, our Step-Through looks like it's going to be about 19 and a half. Yeah, a little less than 19 and a half for the Step-Through here. Now again, we're measuring at this lowest point, and sometimes it's not really fair to do that because the seat's usually above where the lowest point is, but because that we've got this pedal forward geometry, you can see the seats back here. So imagine, you know, your butt's over here, your pedals are all the way up here. So it's a very seat back, pedal forward geometry, which just means that it's going to be easier for, especially if somebody's got like hip problems, knee problems, things like that. It's going to be a much smoother ride. You're going to be a little bit more recumbented. you're going to be leaning back a little bit. So that's one of their design philosophies, getting those pedals a little bit forward, giving you more of an upright, you know, easy to ride. Very rideable ride, if you will. So 19.5 inches on here, and let's go over to the step over. And as you can tell, this is a much different beast here. So right here where you'd be stepping over the bike, it's gonna be right at about, where's 31? 31 is right about here. I think that's pretty reasonable for our step over height, or our stand over height here. So 31 inches on the step over, and then 19.5 on the step through. So if you're somebody who's like, you saw this bike and you're like, I really like the way it looks, I think this is my vibe, but I've got lower back problems, knee problems, I don't want to do all this leg hiking to get my leg over here, you can go with the step through. All the same features, all the same specs, but it's going to be much easier for you to just lift your knee a little bit, get it through that step through area. So really, those are the differences. We could talk about everything, but I would just be like, you know, here's an RST guide fork, here's an RST guide fork. So all the specs are exactly the same. So if you follow along with the review so far, we talked about mainly the step through here. The step over is going to be all of that and a little more of a standover. So that's pretty much it as far as the differences there. It's just going to be our step through height. So let's continue on with the rest of the review. But for now, I think that pretty much covers all you need to know about the bike. So let's go ahead and see how it performs on the ride test. All right, guys, we are out here for the ride test on the Tahoe GT, and let's go ahead and rip it. We are in pedal assist level 0, but our throttle does work. So we do get some takeoff with the throttle, even in pedal assist level 0, which for me, I probably would prefer if it's in 0. We don't have access to the throttle. It's kind of a safety thing of, you know, you're letting somebody hop on the bike, they don't actually hit the throttle and, you know, fall off and end up on YouTube, something like that. But let's go ahead and just pedal this like a regular bike. Now, the other thing that we didn't really mention in the specs, and it's really more of a ride feel thing, is ELUX has a very pedal forward design. So the pedals are much further in front of me than a traditional bike. So that helps alleviate a lot of the strain on people who've got lower back problems, or they've got knee problems, hip problems. It puts everything out a little bit further from you. So it's much more of like a reclined, seated position than a traditional bike is. The pedals are a little bit more underneath you, which again, people who sort of have those ailments can, they'll feel it a little bit more than say I would, since I don't have any of those problems. But it is very comfortable, very casual riding position. I'm very straight up and down here. Let's slow down through the water here. We do have a full set of fenders, but I've got to clean the bikes when it's done, so I'm gonna keep them clean as they can. And I did use the throttle there. So again, pedaling goes through all the gears real easy. And like I had mentioned, the bike comes fully assembled. I didn't have to adjust anything. So very easy to pedal. Let's go ahead and put it into pedal assist level 1. And 1 takes us to about 9 or 10. 2 is when you can really start feeling it. 2 takes us to about 14. And 3. 2 about 16. No, that's still going. Yeah, 16, 17. And then 4. Takes to about 20 miles per hour. Now we still got a little bit, 21. Yeah, I'll say 21 for 4. And then 5. And again, all those little bumps and stuff. I mean, it looks a little bit shaky on the GoPro, but man, it is comfortable. And then throttle. So it takes us to about 26. And let me see what we got going on over here. And then our throttle, I'm not pedaling anymore, we're just doing throttle. Now here's a good bump to test out the suspension on. Oh yeah, like butter. There's also a lot of like cracks and bumps and stuff that we're going over, so I'm just kind of, really feels like I'm floating over all of it. Well, a brake test, I guess. So the trail's closed. Just this section. I guess we'll go this way. Oh. Now we're into some loose pea gravel here. So let's see how these tires fare on here. Some of the tires get a little bit slippery when you get into these loose pea gravel stuff, but so far feels pretty good. Yeah, handling that stuff real well, actually. Now I'm taking these corners kind of conservatively. It's not like if I were whipped around them. I mean, you're on any bike, you whip around them, you're gonna lose some functionality there. All right, so we got sort of the top speed, and if you're paying attention, you can see sort of our torque curve to get there. Do a brake test here. Oh, that was nice. But now we're going to switch it into eco mode. So again, we're going to press and hold this set button here on the side, and set 0 is going to be our power modes here. So let's go ahead and put it in eco. Press and hold set again. We'll get out of it. Now we're in pedal assist level. Put it back down to 1. We'll hit the throttle. Much different takeoff. Very smooth, much lower power curve here. So you're still gonna get all of the same speeds, but you have much more reaction time in getting there. So that was super easy, smooth. Yeah, not a linear power curve at all. There we go. So see, I still got the throttle on. We're still going faster. So you still have access to all of the top speed, at least from what I can tell with the different power modes, but it just gets there a lot smoother. So if you're someone who's like, hey, I saw you doing those ride tests and you were going a little bit faster than I wanted to, you put this thing in eco mode, and not only are you going to get more range out of it, look at that. Super easy. We go to 2. Easy breezy. So for me, I really like being able to go in there and customize things and change it for the riding day. If I was out, if I had something like this, and say I'm riding with my son, he doesn't have an electric bike yet because he's 4. He rides his own bike, so he's not going 20 miles per hour. But if I could put this thing in pedal assist level 1 and just kind of cruise around with him, he could probably keep up with me going 8-9 miles per hour. Well, that's maybe a little bit too quick, but it's a lot different than me being out on my Zeus UU 1100 where I'm just cruising around with 1,000 watts all the time. So it's a much more toned down riding experience. So be easier to ride with friends. I'm gonna get on the sidewalk here real quick because there's cars coming. So yeah, so it's kind of like you're buying 3 bikes in one. And then normal, as you could guess, with something that has 3 options, it's kind of right there in the middle. All right, guys, that is going to do it for me. If you guys have any questions about ELUX or the Tahoe GT, let me know down in the comments below. Love talking to you guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.